Well, I just got a phone call from my wife. She says she's having a problem with the Tahoe. That's going to take priority on Tech Garage today. Hey, babe, what's going on?
Hey, I'm so tired of that musty odor when I start my car in the morning. Can you take a look at it and see if you can fix it for me?
Yeah, you've been telling me that. I know it smells when we start it up in the morning. We also have a problem with the AC. The temperature's wrong. It's staying cold over there and you're freezing when you're riding that side. We'll take care of both of those issues today on Tech Garage. I'll tell you what, you take the Cadillac, leave this here, we'll take care of it.
All right.
Welcome to Tech Garage, presented by rockauto.com. Well, that old adage that the technician car is always fixed last doesn't hold true here. Brian, I'll tell you why. This is my wife's car, man. I'm glad you made a spot. This is priority. Let me tell you what's going on. Crank it up in the morning, she's got some mildew odor coming through the AC system. I mean, we're in Florida, pretty common.
Yep.
Also, when she's riding in the passenger seat, it's freezing, man. It's like 60 all the way down, that automatic air, no matter where you turn it, she's freezing. Not gonna stand for it.
All right, couple things we got to check there. So she's a tough customer and we got to take care of her. The thing I heard was active mildew, right? Potentially, because there's an active odor in there, or mold. Those are things we can check for pretty easily and rectify if that's in fact what we find.
Absolutely.
But we got to start with a filter.
Always. Now, no matter what, the cabin filter is in all these vehicles today, and a lot of people don't even realize there's a cabin filter in there. Now, the important part about this is, whether you have a mildew smell or not, this is a filter. It has a lifespan. The intake air is coming over this stuff. You live in a dirty climate like we do here with dusty roads, forget it, man. Check this out. It's a good test. If I hit that, man, look at that.
Oh,
that just come out of there.
Nice.
That's brutal, and that's coming out of the car.
Here's the old light test, too. This is a solid. When you see anything passing through, compare that to a new one.
Yeah, watch this.
Yeah, there you go. Literally almost night and day. So that's definitely a potential culprit.
That's a big difference. Yeah, that's going to make a big difference. Now, the cool part is I looked at the service manual, and this cabin air filter is actually located right behind the glove box.
Okay.
So what that tells me is the airflow is going to come in, go over it through the blower motor and onto the evaporator. So when you pull this out, you'll probably have access to that evaporator where you can at least get some spray or some kind of cleaner in there, but you know it's important to use the right product.
Yeah, absolutely. Old school, lots of times people would use Clorox, a mix of Clorox and water. Bad idea. Number one, you don't want to blow chlorine back into the cabin. Number two, if you spill it, drip it anywhere, you're going to stain that factory carpet. So use the right tool for the job. It's AC Delco spray will do the trick, and it'll kill any active mold or mildew.
And that's going to take care of the stink while you're in there. We'll go ahead and put that in there.
Sure will.
Now you can go ahead and get started on this. You got some tricks as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, I went to the dressing room and I brought your mirror.
What do you need that for?
Well,
you
it's
don't have any
good,
hair.
Good point. But that helps me see up underneath there. It actually has some value because it certainly doesn't help you at all. So I'm going to get started on this.
Awesome. I'll tell you what, there's a carbon impregnated one right here, which is
even
really
better.
nice. Yeah, that we had the choice of both of them at Rock Auto. Why don't you use that one? We'll take care of the stink.
Got it.
I'll show them actually what's going on inside this case. This is pretty cool. This is an AC evaporator case right here on the table so you can see what's going on inside. And I got the blower motor located right here. Now my blower motor, that thing goes right inside the case, and that's what allows the air to pass over the different components inside of here. And I'm going to show them to you, because what's happening here is inside this case, what you have here is you have a heater core located right here, and then the evaporator we're talking about is below that. So if I take the screw out right here, you can actually see the heater core is up on top, the evaporator is below, and depending on temperature, doors, and position, it's going to depend on where the air goes. You're going to get heat or you're going to get air conditioning, one or the other. But the deal is, if I pick this up right here and pop this out, you can see located right down here, this is the evaporator. This is actually what we're talking about. What happens, it evaporates, and what happens, condensation all builds up in here. Now you stop the car, it's sitting overnight, just like my wife said, and then she cranks it up in the morning. There's a little condensation, there could be some buildup in there like Brian talked about. He's gonna spray in there right through here where the cabin door goes, try to get a little spray on this evaporator, and then we'll let it sit for a while. They also make some other products. You can shoot in from the bottom as a do-it-yourselfer, shoots in the case, foams up, does the same trick. But the thing is to get the mildew out of here. Sometimes you can let this run for a while before you shut it off. Just put vent on, it'll clear out some of that smell. But he's taking care of it. I'll tell you what, he does have a tough customer, so let's see how he's coming along.
Okay, we got the glove box down and out. There were just two pins holding that in down at the bottom. You pop them, set that up out of the way. This is now the liner inside of the glove box behind it. It comes down and out. You set it up here out of the way. There's just 5 torque screws to hold that in. Very simple to get them out. Now we've got to look at the trap door that goes into the cabin air filter. Let me work it loose, little pop. There we go. There's the door, it comes right off. Now, here's the moment of truth. Here's the cabin air filter. Let me get it out. I can smell a little something already in here. Okay. Comes out, goes in one way. There we go, it's in the right direction. There's nothing obvious, like there's not a lot of leaves or dirt here or anything, but there's definitely a little twinge. If this was smell-o-vision, you'd be getting this too. Definitely gonna replace this. Now, a little tip while I'm in here, I like to take a shop vac in that whole intake, that whole cavity back there where air and debris and everything comes in. Just hit it briefly with the shop vac and get anything obvious. I can see some dust back in there. I'm not seeing any mold, anything really growing. So I like to suck whatever I can in terms of dirt up out of here. There we go. Feel better about making a full-blown attempt to clean it. Now, remember our spray? Pretty liberal with this stuff. It evaporates pretty quickly, but it's active. So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I see where I'm spraying. Give that a good shot back up in there. Get as far in as you can. I'm going left to right. I'm covering that whole surface area. Again, nothing I can see, but I want to make darn sure I get it down through that ductwork. It actually feels like a little bit of moisture in here. John said something about super cold on one side versus the other. So while I'm down here, I'm going to take a look at that door and its actuator and make sure all that's working right, because that could be a contributing part of this problem. So stay with us on Tech Garage, brought to you by rockauto.com.
Tech Garage, presented by rockauto.com, is being brought to you by Borla, the world's most winning exhaust. Evapo-Rust, super safe rust remover. And by rockauto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Well, it's looking good and dry in there. Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by rockauto.com. Ready for the new carbon impregnated cabin air filter. Now, direction matters. We mentioned that we're coming from outside in, the airflow is down through, follow the arrow. It only goes in one way. And why carbon? Because that will catch and kill any active mold or mildew or bacteria that may ever want to come back in there. Won't be able to grow. I'll put this trap door back on in just a minute, but I mentioned the actuator. So here's a good test for you. I've got this panel just about down and out. There we go. Now we got access. The actuator runs that gate, the air control gate in there for heat or cold, and directs the air where it needs to go. Remember, Mrs. Gardner said it was constantly staying cold in here. Couldn't get control of that. So the test is, with the key in the accessory mode, turn your temperature range dial, and you should hear and see, in this case, the actuator moving. We got nothing. Now, I tried that on the driver's side, and you can hear it. You could actually hear it running over there, and there's not a temperature zone control issue on that side. So the actuator, which is right here, has a connector right here. Let me pull this out and get a good look at this. This is just a visual inspection, no broken posts. There's 6 posts down there. They all look good. So I don't think we have an electrical issue. And again, the driver's side's working properly. So I went back to the rockauto.com stock room. I got a new actuator. I'm going to go ahead and get that swapped out, get it all buttoned back up, the bottom cap, the liner, and the glove box, and we're going to be ready for a test drive. But if you want to see how this whole system really works, John's got that.
Well, what is the case duct system and how does it all work? Well, right here, we'll start with our actual graphic. You can see right here that blower motor I showed you earlier. Now, coming inside or outside the car, depending on where we want the air. If we want it to come from the outside or we want it to recirculate inside, this door is going to control that. And we blow across that evaporator. We talked about that earlier with the moisture buildup. Now we have a temperature door here. We can shift it up in this position and let that cold air condition bypass that heater core and come into the car, or we can shift the door up or down depending on what we want to do. If it's down, we're not going to have air condition on. What's going to happen here is the air is going to flow through the heater core, and that's going to put heat in the car depending on the temperature. And these are just temperature doors here that's going to determine where it's going to go, floor, up, down, no matter what it is. Now I have a few right here to show you. There's different types of temperature doors and actuators. A while back we had vacuum actuated ones. We actually started with cable ones. Now you can see right here, if I move this cable back and forth, it's actually just driving the door right there. The cable pulls and pulls the door and allows that one to move. Now after that, we kind of went to some vacuum actuated ones. They're located right here. And that's what all these hoses are. These are vacuum actuated hoses that go to it. I actually have a vacuum pump, and if you watch this door right here, I'll hook this up And as the car would apply vacuum, if you select it inside or outside, it would actually pump here, and you can see the door open. It would hold the door open. Once I went ahead and I pulled the vacuum away from it with the actuator switch, I can show it to you right here. The door is going to close, okay? So open, close, vacuum actuated, depending on solenoids and switches. And these are all color coded. So if you have an actuator door in an old car, you can go around and check these, make sure you have vacuum that's pulling the door open. Now, what we're dealing with is these new electronics. These new electronics are pretty cool because you got these different electrical solenoids. Now you have one here with an arm that's driving the door like this one, or you could have one that actually has a shaft that goes in there and drives it. Now be careful with these. A lot of times they're either timed or actuated to the door. Well, what does that mean? That means sometimes I have to plug it in and get the computer and make sure it's in the right position, or put it in at the right position, because if the door's up and the motor's down, when I go to run it, it has nowhere to go, so you can do damage to the motor. So check that out as well. Now you can see the door right here. This is pretty cool because if I reach over, watch this temperature door right here. All I have to do is just push a button. And when I push a button, it's going to go ahead and actuate that door, and there it goes. So I went ahead and pushed the recirculation button. It opens up. Now what's going on here? It's actually taking air from the outside through the cowling of the car, and it's coming in and it's using that air. Now, if you got it on auto and the car's getting nice and cold, it wants to use some inside air, it's just going to switch, and you can see the door here close. And when the door closes, it closes there. And then when you put it on auto, it kicks it back 20%. It's not always fully closed. We always have a little bit of outside air. That's so when you slam the doors, you don't blow the windows out or have that sonic boom. You have a little bit of ventilation right there. So this is a real good look at the temperature doors. Now what Brian's dealing with over there, he's dealing with the temperature sensors that actually control the right side and the left side. And they're located on the side of the case. That allows the driver to have a temperature and allows the passenger to have a temperature. And we're talking about my wife, very temperature sensitive.
Critical, and it's no wonder that actuator, the door wasn't working. The actuator's stuck. You can actually hear something banging around in there.
Is it?
So that thing's shot, and it's
Yeah.
a no-brainer. Old school cable or vacuum, we may not have had a problem, but that electronic actuator is absolutely broken. So went ahead and swapped it out. I think we're good. We did a test drive, ran full heat, full air, no temperature zone issues at all. I think Mrs. Gardner's going to be happy.
And I think you saved my relationship. Now listen, when you're putting these dashes back together, there's little 7mm screws. I mean, you really have to be patient and pulling them apart. Sometimes they're up in there, they're very hard to find.
Yeah, I used a power ratchet bringing them out, but I put them all back in by hand for that very reason. Just take your time, wipe it all down, clean it up, do a professional job. We're all set.
Well, perfect. We'll get this car back to her. She's going to be happy. Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah.
Just stick around. There's plenty more. We're bringing in Project M&M right after this break. Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, you remember that term, bouncing like a baby buggy? Project M&M, Mercury Makeover. You heard that term before. We got Tom with us from Rock Auto. Tom, what are we going to do about it?
We'll replace the strut assembly. So far we've got the upper ball joint removed. We've got the lower and upper strut mounts disconnected. We've got the sway bar link pulled. We're making sure there's no tension on the speed sensor or the brake line.
Yeah, that's hugely important. Now we're down to the last nut up there, so if you grab that last nut, I'll give you a little slack here, and then I'm going to need your help here, a little muscle to pull that thing down. You're a real trooper sticking this thing out. You know, we just, this work seems to be getting heavier and heavier, Tom.
I'm looking forward to seeing this Mercury all back together.
Yeah, me too, and going on a test drive. Hey, talk about the comparison of this.
Well, sometimes when people get new strut assemblies like this, the lower mount will be turned, and they'll say, hey, this is the wrong part, and maybe I should return this. Well, no, that's not the case. This just spins, so you just need to rotate this, and sometimes you need to put a spring compressor on this and squeeze it a little bit, and then get a sturdy rod and spin it, or maybe put the upper part on and then put a rod in here and turn it just a tiny bit.
It's exactly what we did on the other side. Now we got the other side all done. It's ready to go. This side will finish up. But before we put it in, the sticker right here, I'll just go ahead and tear it off. But that sticker is an important piece of the puzzle. It's actually a warning. We never want to take this nut off right here, because why? This thing's under compression right now. I mean, if we didn't have a whole unit, we'd have to go to a strut compressor, spring it, and then replace it after we actually get the tension off of it. So that nut is hugely important. Don't take that off, all right? You get those muscles flexed again, pull it down for me, and I'll slide it up. We'll get the bottom down in there first. That should give us enough room to clear. Look at that. And this one's about indexed. Just a hair off. There we go. Okay, great. Get that started. Whew, that's a beefy unit, all right?
Looks good.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, you want to get started on the top, and I'll educate a little bit about a shock absorber, because it's pretty cool, man. Now, a shock absorber, a job of the shock absorber is to control spring oscillations. And what I'm talking about is the spring controls ride height. A lot of people think the shocks do that. No, they're just there to control them. And you can see inside of one here, this is really cool. This is a cutaway, and this is a gas shock. And what does a gas shock do? Well, there's gas down here, and there's hydraulic fluid up here. And what happens on jounce and rebound as you go up and down, it actually passes fluid through here, and then the gas portion of it, it keeps pressure up on that fluid and stops any aeration, so you get a great ride. These shocks are going to do a great job, man. They're going to do just that. All right, got the last bolt going. A couple other things we can do too, Tom. That's a jounce test. Someone can go over there and they can push down on the bumper, and if it comes up 1.5 rebounds and starts bouncing around, it's time to replace shocks. And another thing, man, these things go to the junkyard with the OE shocks in them all the time. I mean, they're just a maintenance item, something to replace.
Right. Yeah, new shocks, if these are worn out, you're stressing all sorts of other systems on the car, so it's a faster trip to the junkyard.
Well, at this point, we can go ahead and put the spindle back together, but we can't do that. What's going on here?
Yeah, the seal is disintegrated on the upper ball joint, so we definitely want to replace that. And at rockauto.com, we have upper control arms with the ball joint already installed, so you don't have to press it out or anything. And with this car, we might want to go ahead and get a front end kit, so we get the upper control arm, lower control arm, and the tie rod end all together, get it all completely fresh.
Yeah, I can't bear to put this thing together. We put too much work into it, man. We want the whole thing right. Now, we're going to talk about the table today, because I know you got this whole assembly. That's cool, but we have some other options.
Yeah, the whole assembly, there's advantages to that, and I'd like to talk about that and show the different parts that go into an assembly and why it's good to get them as one unit.
Well, while we're over there, we'll get these extra parts. So let's head over there. We'll get that done. We'll get this thing buttoned up. I can't wait to drive it. Sooner or later, we're going to take this thing for a ride, buddy.
I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Tom, we were fortunate on our Project M&M because we had the whole strut assembly. But what if a professional shop wants to call you and they have the ability to compress the spring? Can I get the parts?
Oh, sure. You could buy the individual strut. You can buy the spring separately, the mount separately, all those pieces. But even shops, because they're thinking about labor and their time, get the jobs through, they'll often buy the complete strut assembly, because then there's no surprises. You don't get halfway into it and realize, oh, the strut mount's rusted to pieces. You don't need to get a spring compressor out. It's all right there ready to install.
Yeah, and you think about that. I mean, you're getting the spring that controls ride height. You got new ride, you got new shock, everything in one complete package. Save the labor rate. Awesome product. But I'll tell you what, doing that strut made me super hungry. I'm going to go catch a snack. You do the same. We'll be right back with more Tech Garage right after this.
Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is being brought to you by Z-Max, the one product for your engine, transmission, and fuel system. Clamp Tight, the clamp making tool. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, Brian, it's one of our favorite segments, the real deal. Video question of the week, roll it.
Hey guys, check this out. I was told that could either be my tensioner or my belt. What do you think, Brian?
Sam, good question. Now, I didn't hear the voice of that squeal for very long, but there are definitely some basic things you need to check.
Yeah, what am I, chopped liver, Sam? I mean, I was worried about the extended crank. I mean, fuel pump return, but he's definitely talking about that belt squeal.
Yeah, there's some basic maintenance, I think, in his future. Now, one of the best, easiest checks you can do is a really fancy tool called a water bottle. This is straight water, no soap, no other mixture in it. With the vehicle running and the belt circulating, go ahead and spray some water on the longest run of the belt that you can get. If the squeal increases, John.
Yeah, because the water acts as a lubricant, that's a tension issue. That means that you have a tensioner problem. You probably want to replace it and make sure it's okay. This one here, you can hear it. I mean, it's flopping around. You can use a professional tension gauge like this right here. This actually goes on there and it tells you exactly where your belt's at, but you definitely want to address the tension issue.
That's called deflection. Now, if you spray water on the longest run and the squeal decreases,
that's an alignment problem.
Sure is.
One of these pulleys can be out of alignment, and you got the fix for that right there, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Dayco makes a great little kit. If you're doing a belt project, it tells you it's a laser alignment tool. You shoot across, you make sure you're right on track, right on path. It's perfect. Makes it a lot easier to use. This project is intimidating for some people, but there are so many tools available now to make this easier for you. Get the right belt tensioner wrench. This one we got from RockAuto.com. Great investment because you're always going to have serpentine belts on today's vehicles.
Absolutely, and the serpentines belt technology has changed as well. I mean, the old school belts, you can see it right here.
Yep.
This used to be a neoprene belt. Now what this is, you just see these cracks right here, and when you see these cracks, you know that you had to replace the belt. I mean, this one's cracked, this one's shot. But that doesn't happen anymore, man. They're EPDM material, which means they wear like a tire. They start to go down in the grooves, and when they start to go down in the grooves, it's going to introduce heat. You got a new belt, an age belt, and a used belt.
Yep.
So go to the new
our
one.
fancy gauge tool here.
I feel that protruding out, now that's sticking out a lot. That's because it's a new belt, that's good. Those grooves are not worn out
Not very
yet.
deep.
Right.
Yep. Come to the middle one, slightly
To the
worn.
middle one. It's starting to dive down in there a little bit, but it's still sticking out some.
Yep. And you go to the used belt.
Yep.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you see, I don't feel it at all. So what happened is it went deeper and deeper and deeper in those grooves, and when that happened, it starts introducing heat into the components.
That's a problem.
This belt's huge, man. We're
Yeah.
talking about catastrophic failure here, Brian.
Yeah, lots of components can and will fail. Now, the decoupler pulleys nowadays on alternators, that's great technology, but you've got to be aware if that's what you have, that's going to change your service schedule here.
Yeah, and this is important because you'll have a cap on there and you have a pulley like this. If you have a system with a decoupler alternator, you have to replace it with a decoupler alternator. You cannot put a regular alternator on there.
Yep.
Now, if it comes without the decoupler pulley and you want to go ahead, you're going to also have to get a special tool set like this here. Tool set that goes down in there, and when the tool set goes down in there, there's different heads and splines on here that are going to go in there and allow you to go ahead and take this pulley off and replace it if it just needs replacing.
Yep.
But got a decoupler pulley, replace it with a decoupler pulley. You
Gotta
don't
do
have
that.
one, you can't use one.
Belts have a huge responsibility. We all know that. You think about the AC system we repaired today on your wife's Tahoe. That project went really well. The test drive, I think, went well. Did you get any feedback?
Oh man, I tell you what, I got a phone call. It's great, man. She's happy. We've been married for 30 years. I bet you I got another 30 more in there.
Hey, we love your questions. Keep them coming. Come see us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter every week.
Well, we're out of time, so it's time to say bye-bye. So from us here at Tech Garage, presented by rockauto.com, bye-bye.
Production assistance for Tech Garage is provided by Chipola College, located in Marianna, Florida. Founded in 1947, Chipola was recently ranked as one of the top 3 community colleges in the United States.